Alrighty, everybody. Back working in the garage. We've got... This is a lift ram off the Allis Chalmers. Not an Allis Chalmers lift ram. I think I found what brand it is. I can't remember what it is, though. But it's an aftermarket ram. Pretty easy to rebuild. It's called that threaded gland. I can't remember exactly, but you put this... You have this locking ring on there. Tightens down on this. What happens is when that's in the cylinder, you push that in, take the snap ring out, this snap ring, and then you pull the whole ram out. It's like this threaded rod, threaded whatever. Even though the gland is not threaded, it's called a threaded, so that's a little confusing to me. The normal Allis Chalmers rams are threaded like that. The benefit of this is literally the only tool you need to take. Technically, if it comes apart nice, the only tool you need to pull the rod out is an 1/8 inch Allen head for the set screws on the ends. Right there. So you just undo one there, one on the other side, slide that off. Oh, and so, sorry, take that back. Take that back. You need technically only two tools. You need that 1/8 inch Allen, and then you need a pick to get under that snap ring and pull it out. And then I was having some difficulties getting the ram out, so I had to put a pry bar in there and one hand on each side and give her a twist and pull. And then it came right out. So in theory, that's all you need to get the rod out. But when I ran down and pulled the rams off, there's another one sitting right there. We brought the Cub back for a tune-up. It's overheating when it's loaded up. It's been overheating for like a whole season. That's why we have this cylinder on the side, and this is an open. This was designed as like an open system thermosiphon. So basically, it's liquid cooled, but there's no water pump. You can see, oh, that pulley. No, that's not a water pump. That's an idler pulley for the cooling fan. And all they do is it fills with engine oil. You got to drain this pulley out and refill it with 30 weight engine oil, which is kind of silly. And you can see you have these slotted to adjust your belt tension. So you slide that up and down on that channel. And what it does is it uses the temperature of the coolant to circulate itself. So you fill the system up, and as it heats up, it rises, and it dumps, and then it cools. And once it gets to a certain temperature, it should just constantly be flowing, maintaining temperature. There's no thermostat. There's no anything. But these either run a cut radiator cap like that. In theory, it should do that, but I'm thinking that's probably why it's overheating. But this is a really old engine, and we're going to pull the cylinder head off. It's an old flat head. This is a 1 liter, 4-cylinder, makes 11 horsepower when it was new, and that's 11 horsepower at the drawbar, I believe. But I do not know for sure if that's crank or drawbar horsepower. But mows the acres just fine. Starts right up every time. It runs great. Just runs a little hot. But we're gonna check the plugs. Some of these look a little oil fouled. That one looks a little dirty. But the front one's pretty oil fouled. You can see right there. So we'll pull the head off. We'll take a look. We'll see what the pistons look like and what the valves look like. We're going to change the oil filter and the engine oil. Going to change the oil in the air cleaner, change the oil in the pulley. It's got a hydraulic weep at the end of the ram in here, so I got to fix that. So I got to drain the soft touch hydraulics and get that all taken care of. And that drip is from a rear main seal. Interesting on these tractors, they don't make the rear main seal anymore. So you have two options. You can either try and glue a rear main seal in with RTV, which is what we did, and it now leaks. Or you can have the housing machined for a seal with a slightly larger outside diameter. They make one that is too small and they make one that is too big, but they do not make that seal anymore. So at some point when I do the rear brakes on this tractor, I'm going to split it and I'm going to redo the rear main on this tractor. having the housing machined out to the larger seal outside diameter. It's not a very fast leak, so it's not like the clutch isn't wet or anything like that, to the best of my knowledge. Last time I checked, and it's been leaking at the same rate for the past year. And when I first checked it, about a month after it started leaking, the clutch was not wet, and there was no signs that the clutch would become wet. But yeah, that's what we're doing on the tractor. We're also going to throw some lights in. I ran the wiring for the lights. They just never got hooked up. So that's got to be done. That is missing a screw. That's why we do our yearly inspections. So that would be bad if that ever hit the fan. So that's got to be taken care of. Probably vibrated out. I was not the last person to have the cowling off, or maybe no, I was, and I forget what we were looking at, that hydraulic leak. We were diagnosing it when we took the sheet metal / fuel tank off. Yeah, once the lights are hooked up, I can take that electrical tape off the light switch and it can be functional. Not perfectly original. I added some fuses. I took the fuse out of the main, out of the center. That's where the one fuse would go. But I added 2 fuses just in case. You never know. One of those is for the charging circuit, which you need, and one of them goes for the ignition, which isn't technically needed. But it's better to have more fuses than to have no fuses. Yeah, this one runs up to the ballast resistor, which you should never see anything on that amperage-wise that would pop a fuse. But just in case something shorts out, because the ballast resistor just sits out here in the open. So just in case anything lands on it, hits it, and it shorts out for some reason, it'll pop a fuse and not melt the harness. And then the other fuse runs up to the alternator. And this used to be a generator tractor, but it's a self-exciting mini Capota off of Amazon, like $70. But, you know, EMP comes through, or a solar flare or something like that, I'm not going to charge the battery, sadly. So I'd like to, it'd be nice to get a generator back on this thing at some point. We'll see. But it works. I think if an EMP hits, cutting the grass is not going to be our biggest concern. And it's not like we have any other attachments for this tractor, nor would it be easy to find any, because PTO is at a different RPM and it spins opposite direction. So you need Cub specific attachments for this. So really the only thing this could do is cut the grass. But it's reliable with the alternator. Yeah, and I don't know if this is technically a self-exciting alternator. I have this ground hooked up on it. Not quite sure if it's necessary, but it's there. It grounds itself. And it charges the battery, so not sure. Not sure at all. But we're going to keep going to town on this. We might also fix this exhaust pipe. That's rusted out. So we might cut a little bit, reflare it, and bolt it back together. That should do the trick. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We might just do the pop can trick too and reseal it. That's the only time I call it pop, by the way. I am from Wisconsin. That's the only time I call it pop, is when I say pop can. Other than that, it's soda. But change the oil, clean the cooling passages, and hopefully it stops overheating. I did not see any exhaust gases in the coolant. I ran it. I slapped my little tester on here, Well, it's a little color changing fluid. No issues with exhaust gas in the coolant. No oil in the coolant, which on a system like this that runs at a max 7 pounds, currently runs at 0 psi, there would be oil in the coolant. But no oil in the coolant, no coolant in the oil. And I think it's just that upper radiator cap being cut, which was done on purpose, not by me. It was just all these tractors are supposed to run an open system, and they just cut the seal. It's like, I wouldn't have done that, but it was done, and here we are. Motor needs to be inspected anyways. The valves don't tick, so we're not pulling off the lifter plate back here to inspect those, because they don't tick, and the oil comes out without big chunks in it or glitter, so I'm not concerned. Check the fluid, because you have to check the fluids in 3 points. Each one of these gears on the side has to be checked. Then you have to check the rear diff. So we'll have to check that too before we are done. And before it goes back to the farm to have the mower put back on. And gosh, I think that's about it. We'll take another look at that oil leak. I check it every spring. Pull that plate off and inspect the oil leak and see how bad it is. But yeah, that's it. Getting it back to work.